Hey, it's Andreas here. Welcome back to my poker channel. In today's video, I'm going to review some live poker hands that I played in a televised no-limit hold'em poker tournament. There was like one feature table in a 350 buy-in, about 34,000 for first. We're starting off being exactly on the bubble, and the first 90 minutes I was on the feature table, and I'm just gonna go through some of the hands that I played. So one of the first hands that I got dealt is the A7 offsuit from the hijack. It's again directly on the bubble, will be a bit looser here than in general. A7 offsuit definitely making it in there. Also have one of the larger stacks at this point, and I think only two people have been covered. I do not expect to play a lot of all-ins against them. So ICM will be not too much of a factor, being still about 40-50 big blinds deep. Flop comes A6, 5 rainbow against the big blind, who has a bit more chips than me. I still want to be betting, I think, just for a min bet, and with pretty much all of my hands, there's probably going to be enough hands that will fold. And to my surprise, he immediately found a raise, a small raise, but he did have the open and a straight draw with a 7-8 of diamonds. And of course, with the ace not going anywhere, and I continue by calling versus the raise. Also, I was thinking about like how many worse ace-X there are still around, because a7 is pretty much near the worst ace once the 5 and the 6 is on board. And because the board is rainbow, I also didn't think there are like that many bluffs, except for of course the 7-8. And once my opponent immediately checks the turn, the king, I think that it's either a very weak hand or the 7-8. The open-ended straight draw that makes the most sense, or just some ace that doesn't want to go for 3 straights, and then he immediately gives up on the river, and I go for another bet on the 10. And I mean, yeah, I'm already winning against 7-8, and maybe some of the time he has something like 6-7, 6-8, and wants to be sticky. But of course, with the 8 high, he's not going to continue in this hand. A little bit later, pick up the pocket 5s in the +1. We're 8-handed. Get called by the cutoff and the big blind. Again, we are on the stone cold bubble at this point, and seeing the ace king deuce board, I do still want to bet quite a lot of hands, even though we're 3-way. I don't really want to bet my range, but somewhat close to it. Probably not going to take a stab with some of the weakest ace-X. So I when I'm checking, I also want to have some potential top pairs. So my very weakest ace-X, I'm still going to be checking. So also my weakest hands, the suited connectors, they don't have a backdoor flush draw, so not spades, so the diamonds and the clubs that have absolutely no board and direction whatsoever, no gut shot. Just nothing. This is at least a pair. So I went with the bet with the pocket 5s, trying to follow up on like a 3 or 4 and obviously a 5. And then maybe some other cards that I can't really think of that many, because I think once the cutoff calls, I think it's very likely that he has ace-X or king-X. If he has king-X, his hand that is showing here, king-jack offsuit, is making a lot of sense. King, queen, king-jack, maybe king-10 suited, right? Maybe some suited king that's a bit weaker than king-10 suited, but not that many. So I think that, either an ace or king. I think they're even more ace-X than king-X in this situation. given that King Jack, King Queen offsuit is similarly represented in the ace-x portion, so it's ace-10 offsuit, ace-jack offsuit, ace-queen offsuit, that I didn't expect to 3-bet at this point on the bubble. I think they wouldn't be 3-betting ace-queen that much, even though I did open quite a few hands, and I just checked for the turn, facing the bet. A bit surprised that he did take a small stab with the second pair, but because there are 2 flush draws on boards, I think, you know, he wanted to protect his hand a little bit more. We're still at blind 6k, 12k, and the hijack opens it up with the ace-jack, goes for the 2.5x off of 15 big blinds, maybe a little bit more, maybe 18 big blinds here. And it folds to me in the big blind, and I have King 9 offsuit. Not my favorite hand to defend versus 2.5x, but just making it in there, I think. Probably over-realize a little bit because we're, I believe, still on the stone call bubble. I think 86 got paid. So it's not going to go totally crazy, and sometimes maybe I can just take a stab on some boards that interact with the 9, for instance, and semi-bluff or pick up some pots that I'm not supposed to win otherwise if there wasn't the bubble. And obviously getting a great price pre-flop too. Flop mid-pair, goes check, it checks fairly quickly. And making the 2-pair, commentator says something about check raise a lead. I think betting here is always going to be the better option with these types of hands, because I don't expect that many bets given the ICM situation. So I'd rather want to bet the hands myself that can go bet, turn, all in river, while I have a lot of still semi-bluffs connecting to the 9-8, 10-7, and he quickly folds. We do face a hijack raise, but yeah, we have ace-queen. I do sometimes 3-bet here, of course, but did go for the flat call on the button. On the button I do 3-bet a little bit of different range than in other positions. In other positions, I would 3-bet ace-queen a little bit more often than on the button. On the button, I do want to be able to cold call quite a few hands more than in other situations. So went with the call here instead of a 3-bet. It's always good to see afterwards in the live stream what you thought of your opponents and how long they thought about their decisions and what they actually had in terms of their defending ranges from the blinds and their raise first hints as well. So as I said, I wasn't really sure whether people were opening these small pocket pairs or whether they would find a fold here and there and in what positions they would find a fold. But he takes a small step, trying to fold out my hands that do whiff entirely. He bets so small that I have to call a very large portion of my range. He bets 15 into 70, or no, into 80, I think. Did not go for the raise right away. Blinds are still 6k, 12k. We're actually getting a lot of hands in this blind level. It's just a 30-minute blind level, and we get like 16 hands on this blind level, but facing the raise, he did raise a few other hands. I didn't like see any showdowns, but ace-10 offsuit, I mean, the cutoff here is going to be one of the hands that I'm sometimes bluffing with. Not always, but sometimes. And then this time I decided to go for the 3-bet. In hindsight, maybe, I'm not so sure if it was a good idea, because if I do not sometimes get to fold a hand like ace-jack offsuit, for instance, then it's not working as well. But on the flop, we have the similar situation again as in a previous hand. Where he now calls pre-flop. And there's already so much in the middle at this point, a little bit over 200k. At this point, I do have my opponent covered. And the board comes ace high. Note that on this board, even my bluffs, should I have ace 4, ace 5 suited or something like that, or my ace 10 off, do connect with the board. So I did go ahead for a very small bet, or a little bit less than a fourth, given that I think is a fantastic board. Don't really see a point, especially on the rainbow texture, to bet any bigger. And my opponent immediately raises to 90. And I think that it has mostly to do with me betting small. And some people do think that when they see a small bet, that they do want to raise immediately. Also, sometimes there's a chance that they miscounted. And now seeing this, I do think he might have miscounted his and wanted actually to call. I wasn't like super aware of it in game. I mean, I saw that he had to min raise. I don't quite recall whether he actually said raise or whether he just put in more chips than my 45k bet. So yeah, anyway, versus the min check raise, I do call. And at this point, I'm definitely beat by some hands. Ace, queen, ace, jack, sometimes. And then also sometimes ace, king that didn't 4-bet preflop. They don't always 4-bet preflop with ace, king. We'll definitely take this line and then just check min raise flop with the good kickers on this board, rather than just check calling. Bit surprised that he did it with 9s. On the 8th turn, he doesn't have 8x almost ever, but I did want to... I mean, as I said, I'm not like beating in this 3-bet pot. I'm not really seeing any point of betting turn and going all in river, given that he played this line. I don't really think I'm getting caught by worse if I go for all of it. I think it's overplaying my hand. But given that he check turn and river, I definitely think we should go for value. And I bet about a third, I think. I was pretty confident that I had the best hand. Occasionally, maybe, I thought that maybe he's going to play his jack this way. I think that him reopening the river after turn goes check, check with ace, queen, ace, jack would be the way that he would play it. And then, of course, there's like some suited ace-x, ace-5 suited, that he could have definitely played this way as well. Ace-9 suited or something like that. And yeah, he did call with the pocket 9s, and we go over 1 million chips, and I think take over the chip lead with like 80 left. Blinds are up to 8k, 16k. We look at 7-5 offsuit in the small blind. I think I'm by about 30 big blind effective with the big blind, and I did go for the call here. As I'm mainly playing PLO, in the small blind versus the big blind scenarios at 30 big blinds, I think almost everything can happen, like with a lot of hands. But I think even weaker hands than this one, and with a high blocker such as King 5 offsuit type of hands, you do go for some raises. Wasn't really sure how aggressive he was gonna isolate from the big blind. Obviously ace-8 offsuit is a good hand. He goes for, I think, 3x, and I went down and folded. I think got some slightly better hands to play this spot with, other than this one. Blinds are still 8k, 16k, raised it up to 32k with the 7-6 suited from the hijack. Big blind has 10-6 suited and should be calling here, which he does. And we do see the fantastic flop of 8-7-6. So we flop middle pair, open-ended straight draw, and the backdoor flush draw. He only has like about a pot size left. I did him bet small. The hand that is absolutely crushing the board. He has an open-ended straight draw and goes in calls. Note that a 9 does make him larger straight. So I'm happy that eventually that didn't roll off, spoiler alert, but we do see the 7 on the turn. So I didn't really think it was that he had that much. So yeah, maybe in hindsight he could just also try to let him eventually bluff the river if he wanted to, but yeah. Did go ahead and bet another 31k. I don't know, Jack on the river, kind of a blank. 10-9 gets there, but 10-9 probably could have raised on the flop, given its best open-ender, even on the spade board. And yeah, obviously we go all in after opponent checks, and then he folds the 10 high. So the 8k and 16k, and now we have a bit of an iffy situation. We raise under the gun, and immediately to my left, the guy calls. And this can be quite strong calls. I don't really know how many traps he in particularly would call with. But then as I face the 11 big blinds all in, I have to decide whether I want to fold, call, or ship it. Re-isolate for the 30 big blinds, effective 31, 32 big blinds. If he does have enough traps here that will call and then call an all in, that would be quite brutal for my hand in particular. Note that I didn't think that I was particularly doing well against the 11 big blind shove either. I'm super surprised that he was a bit impatient here and went with the ace-5 offsuit. I did think he was going to realize that both our hands looked quite decent, raising from the first seat and then calling immediately from the second seat. But that was not going through his head, I guess. And then I did let it go. Unfortunately, I couldn't really keep the large stack here. Blinds went up rather quickly, and then I think what was at 1.3 million off stream then. One of the hands was I defended in 6 max my big blind with ace-6 offsuit versus I think 13 big blinds, and then the board was ace-5 deuce. I did flop top pair, checked, he bet a little bit large, but I still had to call, of course, with the top pair. Turn was a 4, so I picked up a gut shot. On top of that, I checked, he went all in for a little bit less than pot at this point, and then I called the all in, lost to ace-10 offsuit, and then I went to a new table. Guy shoves small blind for 12.3 big blinds. I have pocket 3s in the big blind, and I call. I lose to ace-8 suited, and then the next hand I lose my last 2 big blinds that I had more than him with 8-9 suited against ace-8 offsuit again. Same guy. Disappointing results again, but I did play a couple of tournaments, no limit, the last couple of weeks, and I feel I'm doing fairly okay in the fields. We'll play a few more tournaments, mix with Pot Limit Omaha, continue to play the live poker events, and I'm feeling very confident in the months going forward that I will do well. And yeah, let's see. Hopefully I'll bink some of these tournaments other than the mixed games because my no limit Record, the last at least 20 tournaments or so doesn't look as good, but I hope that they will change some of the next tournaments. Yeah, hope that you guys enjoyed the couple of hands that I put here on this channel. That yeah, let me know in the comments if you would have played something differently, if you want to see more videos like this in the future, if it was not as interesting. Again, I'm a pot limit OMA player. I'm not like playing no limit for a living. I think I'm still reasonably informed, but not going to be like nailing the hands all the time, of course. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. See you guys next time.